Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are having a great afternoon. How you guys doing? How you guys doing? So I'm gonna wait for a little bit and then I will start the live stream. Hi, check out my hi Lewis. How you doing? How are you doing? That's an interesting name for your channel. Check out my art. I heard California because I saw on TikTok that when the earthquakes are getting like really bad, like at the border, I guess between California and Nevada, you can see like the cracks are getting bigger and to the point that they're really deep. They're very deep. And it looks like I don't know if California is going to sink or float. I don't know how this goes. I'm not really knowledgeable of that, but in my cases, if because I got to show you guys this video that I saw on TikTok because I thought that was pretty interesting to know that these cracks are getting bigger on this borders. I don't know if California is going to sink or become its own island away from the rest of the United States. I'm not sure about that. I don't have no knowledge of this, but I will show you guys that video in a minute. But it's is becoming known that California is becoming their own, wants to become their own country. There has been signatures that's passed now. I have not seen them yet, but I will be getting in contact with my representative to see if the signatures are passing out. But if they get enough voters or enough signatures, and they have to get like at least 50% of the signatures, then it will be on a ballot for California residents to vote whether or not California would become its own country or remain a part of the United States. Because remember, we're the fourth largest economy in the world, and Japan is right behind us. Germany is right behind us. So that is really huge for a state to have their own economy because look, we have giants such as Google, Microsoft, Meta, Facebook. We have Hollywood, whatever's left of it, and and we also build around tourism. So that is a big deal because it's not just about Hollywood; it's also about our agriculture because we have Yosemite, we have deserts, we have all different types of landscapes and tourism. We also have the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's not just about Hollywood. So Hollywood is not the only thing that is building our economy. There's other things that build in our economy that makes us very strong, and I'm proud of that. Um, California San Andreas fault line will cause Yellowstone eruption. California is also a huge debt. I don't think so. I have not heard that. If it is, it has to do something with the United States, not with us. Because for what I am understanding is that since Trump is cutting off federal funding, he also cut off funding from FEMA to go to Georgia because I guess they was having like a hurricane problem down there, and he did not send no relief down there. He said that states should handle their own disaster relief, which I find that very effed up because it's the governor's job to find like help other states with their national problems. But it looks like Trump is trying to cut every and anything. So it looks like we're going to head into like another recession really soon, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. And this is why Californians are trying to break away from the United States because being a part of the United States will hurt our economy because we have the orange mango in office making really bad decisions. Cutting funding will not make our economy any better. What he should do is he should cut the spending in half so that so that the United States can slowly but surely pick up the economy again and reduce what was it inflation, so that we don't have to do all this spending because we're doing too much in this country. We're absolutely doing too much. And not only that, Elon Musk invaded the treasury. So he's also controlling the money when he has no authority to even be near the US treasury. So that is also causing issues in this economy because the wealthier is going to get wealthier and the poorer are going to get poorer, and we cannot have that. So I am all for California to become its own economy. And it's not us. I guarantee you, it is not us. It is not us. It has to do with the United States as a whole. I guarantee you, it's not us. Because you have to understand, we're not our own country. I can understand if we were our own country, and then I will look at California as a whole, but I have to look at the United States as a whole because we're a union. And as a union, we suffer together by the mistakes of our leaders, especially in Washington, D.C. They control most of the money, most of the treasury in the economy. So we cannot say that it's us when it's not really California. Because we don't control the whole United States. Yes, we we're making trillions of dollars and we help the economy stay afloat. But if you look at the leaders that are in Washington D.C., they're the ones that are cutting funding, and they're the ones that are taking the economy because they're not making the right decision that will benefit the unions in the 50 states and the people that live in them. So we're suffering bad because of the leaders, and this is why most people in California wants to break away from the United States. So I'm going to play a couple of videos from TikTok because I want to hear other people's thoughts on this. So
California may become its own country by 2027. A new proposal has been making its way around government officials in Sacramento called CalCSET, a new bid to place a measure on the ballot that would ask California voters to approve the state's secession from the U.S. has been cleared for signature gathering. Secretary of State Weber announced Thursday that a measure introduced by Marcus Evans of Fresno must receive more than 500,000 signatures by late July. The text of measure, the state would be required to create a 20-member state commission to study California's viability as an independent country in 2027. This is still not something that can be voted on. The signatures are required, but hypothetically, if California was to secede from the nation, California would be the fourth richest country in the world. Half of the South and most of the Midwest would lose all of their federal tax dollars for funding, and America would sink far below what it is now in terms of food security, in terms of GDP, and in terms of gross domestic product. This country seems completely crazy right now.
Other important news.
Okay, so some TikTok videos you can hear it, some that are just too low to hear. Let's check out a next video.
Push underway for California to become its own country. A Fresno man got the green light to begin collecting signatures to put secession on the state's 2028 ballot. To qualify, he needs to collect more than 545,000 signatures from registered.
California may become its own country.
That was a short video. Let me see. So let's read the comment section right here. It said, one person says, yay. Other person says, nice. One says, I'm in. Let's go. Where do we sign? I'm moving to California. Fresno. Oh my gosh, I can't keep up because it's too fast. It changes too fast. But it looks like in this video, most people are agreeing that we should. Did I get my phone figured out? I don't. It's not the phone itself. I think it's the service, because it's like when we talked on the phone, Lewis. When we call, I can hear the phone ringing, but for some reason, it's not allowing me to choose whether I want to answer or hang up. So, yeah, so I think, yes, because some of these phone companies are very cheap. Let me see. But I want to get back to these videos right here. Oops.
A new Collexit initiative is gathering signatures to get on the 2028 ballot, asking voters if the state should break away from the U.S. and become independent. If passed, California would have to establish its own government, create new laws, and take full control of its economy, military, and global relations. For this to happen, over 50% of registered voters must turn out, and at least 55% must vote yes by July 22nd. A 20-member commission would then evaluate the transition. The initiative, led by activist Marcus Evans, also proposes removing the U.S. flag from state buildings, marking a shift toward full sovereignty. While past efforts failed, this push could redefine California's future.
Okay, so
California may become its own.
This seems like a positive thing going on when it comes to breaking away from the union. Other people are very happy that this is good news, but others might think, well, if California could succeed, but there's what ifs. So let's check this out. Let me see.
What would happen if all Californias came together to form their own?
No, that's not. This is not what I want. Hold on. There's another video. Let me see.
What would be the actual impact on the United States if California were to successfully achieve independence? Situated on the West Coast, California holds the largest population and GDP among all states, ranking as the world's fifth largest economy if treated as a separate country. With 133,000 reserve troops, California's independence would deliver a devastating blow to the development of the United States. Historically, due to California's robust economic strength, The U.S. often relies on its tax revenue to subsidize other impoverished states. This has directly led to significant discontent within California towards the federal government. Californians hope that through a referendum for independence, they can compel the U.S. government to address their grievances and thereby secure some development benefits. However, for the U.S. government, the California independence referendum is merely seen as a farce.
Okay, now let's look at another video. I'm trying to find it. Hold on, because some people had something to say on this. Hold on.
But if California becomes its own country, well, if California suddenly decided to break away from the United States and become its own country, you would automatically become one of the most powerful countries in the entire world. Can you guess what color will your passport be?
Okay,
If we take a look
I'm
at its
looking at this one. Hold on. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm trying to figure out what video is that. Let me see if it's this one.
What if California left the United States to become its own country? Instantly, the U.S. would lose a huge chunk of its population and GDP, not to mention Silicon Valley and powerhouse companies like Apple, Alphabet, Chevron, Wells Fargo, Intel, Facebook, and Disney. California's departure would also mean saying goodbye to a major agricultural player and one of the world's largest trading hubs. This move could spell trouble for the U.S., as a successful independent California might inspire other states to follow suit, potentially weakening the country further. But could California actually thrive on its own? With its vast and diverse economy, there's a chance. However, California already faces challenges like high living costs, income inequality, and water scarcity. Going solo could exacerbate these issues, cutting off access to federal resources and support. So, what's the verdict?
So, as far as support, we already got that covered. California doesn't really have to rely on the United States anymore if it secedes from the Union. And we already probably going to have a couple of trading partners with other countries, because you have to remember, the United States is not the only country we can trade with. It's not the only country on earth that we can rely on. We can also rely on countries like Mexico. We could also rely on Canada, Japan, Russia, Germany, and all these other countries that are out there. We can have a good business relationship with them that can sustain our economy. And not only that, since and let's say what if, I'm going to go with what if, right? Because it's not written in stone. If California does get become its own country, there is a chance that we will have free universal health care, because I'm all for free health care, because healthcare in the US sucks. Trust me on this. I went to the doctors a couple of times. I went to the dentist a couple of times. Luckily, I only pay $1 for the dentist because Medi-Cal covers that. However, if you go to the doctors or the clinics, you're gonna have to pay and this is in California alone, like $500 to $1,000 for medical. And to me, that's not okay, because everybody should have free health care in their own state, so that everybody could live longer lives. But not everybody could do that, because it costs so much when you in the United States. So in other countries, if you guys see, they have free healthcare, they have free daycare, food doesn't cost that much because a guy that I watched a guy's video this morning and he said that the cost of living in other countries are very cheap compared to the United States, where our economy is very bad, very, very bad. So I'm starting to believe when other Americans move to other countries, I'm starting to believe that other countries do have a better economy because they do learn from their mistakes, their past mistakes as they run their country. And I believe that California should take notes of that since we are thinking about becoming our own country. We should look at other countries to see how their economy works so that we can thrive on our own. Because don't get me wrong, it's not going to be easy because California also rely on resources from the United States, but you have to remember we're the largest economy in the world, so I think we'll be okay. So I'm just gonna play this little clip here. Hopefully, I don't get copyright because people like to copyright strike instead of getting a chance. So let me go here. So let me get rid of because this guy talks about. So let me get out of here and share this guy's video. Hold on. Let me see. So let me see. I'm going to share this. Okay, so.
You should leave. Let's talk about it. Oh, by the way, welcome to Portugal. So I think the first motivating factor for a lot of people is what's going on politically. You feel ignored. You feel attacked. And more than likely, you are being ignored and you are being attacked. It's the reality. But if you're exhausted, this may be the sign. At what point do you say, enough is enough? It's like anyone that's in a relationship and they're trying to communicate with their partner and both people think they're 100% right. At a certain point, that couple separates with something called irreconcilable differences. Are you at that point? That's the first sign. The next thing is economics. The economic instability, the cost of living, just everything that you have been encountering right now feels like you can't keep up, like your dollar is not going as far. Your housing, your food, your transportation, everything is just getting more and more expensive. Even though the government is telling you that inflation is under control, it doesn't feel that way. And you are really scraping by financially. This, to me, this cost of living situation in the US is just out of control. And I don't think you have to stand for that. We have lived in so many countries around the world where it's affordable. And even as an employee in that country, you have a living wage that is sustainable. People are not going into major debt just to cover everyday expenses. And so if you are in that situation in the US and you don't see how it's going to get any better financially, then this should be the next sign to encourage you to go somewhere else. The next thing for a lot of you guys is healthcare. Do you feel like your healthcare is subpar? Can you get a doctor's appointment? Can you afford to go to the hospital when you're sick? Are you truly getting the best healthcare the world has to offer? Because that is certainly what the American healthcare system and CEOs will tell you, that this is the best healthcare in the world, but yet it's unaffordable, it's inaccessible, Healthcare is the number one reason for bankruptcy in the US. I have personally never met anyone in Portugal, in Japan, or in Spain, all places that we've lived, that has talked about how expensive healthcare is, that they are going bankrupt. That is unheard of in almost every other country except for the US. Really, healthcare feels like a financial trap. And so if your health is suffering and you cannot afford to take care of it, then that is definitely a sign that you should see what else the world has to offer. You can become a healthier, happier person by exploring this one sign alone. Think about it. The next thing we need to talk about is safety. How safe do you feel, and how safe are you really? Oh, you got some food for me? Thank you, Sonoa. Yeah. Oh, what is this? Sonoa made me some onigiri. Okay, back to my question for you. I'll hold that for later. But safety. You know, one of the things that is the most disturbing about what we see as Americans living outside of the US is just how unsafe it appears to be. And one of the things that has just been so amazing about living abroad, here in Portugal, when we lived in Spain, when we lived in Japan, was just the peace of mind that we could walk around with. That we could go to sleep in our homes and not have to worry about someone invading it in the middle of the night. That we could allow our daughters to roam the streets as little kids and not have to worry about something awful happening to them. Safety for me is such an important aspect of life, feeling that sense of security. And if you don't have that and you just can't rest your mind, then that may be a sign to go. Good. Let's go. And this brings me to the next sign, the looming threat of social unrest or chaos. Now, I get the sense that there is something bubbling up in the US that is inevitable. Some sort of chaos, most likely initiated by some conspiracy theory event. I mean, the FBI has warned of domestic terrorism threats, but political leaders remain divided on addressing them. And so, if the leadership is not willing to acknowledge that this is a serious problem, then how can it be solved? And why should it be up to you to leave yourself vulnerable to that situation? But let's talk about personal freedom and civil rights. The decline of personal freedom and civil rights should be something that concerns you. If you feel like you don't have a voice, that people aren't acknowledging your differences, then this is a very, very dangerous situation. It leaves an opportunity for you to be discriminated against, for you to be held back by institutions, for you to have less opportunities in so many ways. And so if you recognize this decline and you don't see that there is an opportunity to retrieve it, that these things are going in the wrong direction, then this is a question that a lot of us really have to come to grips with. And finally, does the US still feel like the land of opportunity? Is it still one of those places where dreams can come true? Is there optimism that if you do everything right, you will succeed? That's a question that I think is debatable right now. And so if you feel stuck, like you've done everything you can possibly do and you're still not moving forward, then what do you have to lose by leaving? So that's it. I think.
Okay. So that's is from this YouTuber. Okay, so what do we have to lose if California leaves the union? Because you already saw and heard what he already has to say regarding the issues that we're having in the United States compared to other countries. Because you heard him that they're not having these issues in other countries with, financial, healthcare, daycare, whatever. in these other countries that he went to compared to the United States, where people have it harder, the American citizens have it harder because we're paying 10 times more on gas, food, electric, you name it. We're paying 10 times more on anything than what other countries are doing. So that comes to lead in the question, okay, what is really going on? Why are we dealing with these things where we don't have to deal with these things that other countries are not going through? Because a lady on her TikTok said that other countries don't have to deal with financial problems and stuff that we are going through here in this country. So I'm going to play this other video, which I feel that it will convince more Californians to vote to leave the union, leave California, because if we can go down with the other unions here, if we keep going on an economic decline in the United States. So let's watch this video right here. Let me see. Excuse me, y'all. I still feel congested. Okay, hold on.
Now America is doing a million things, from tariffs to getting more control over the Panama Canal to pardoning the founder of the Silk Road. And no, not the ancient Silk Road that revolutionized trade, but the modern online and dark web Silk Road that revolutionized trade for things like, hiring your local hitman. Regardless, one thing is true. There's a financial experiment that has been going on in the United States for years that is only getting worse and might speedrun the collapse of the American empire. And it's all tied to the oldest surviving theory of economics. A story that I've never told before on this channel, and one that clearly the modern world has not learned from. You see, the 16th century was Spain's golden age, both metaphorically and literally, because they had so much gold it physically broke their economy. You see, at this point, Spain had built an empire that stretched from Europe to the Americas to parts of Asia.
Okay, guys, I want you to listen carefully on what this guy is saying in his video, because what is he getting to has to relate with what the U.S. economy is doing right now. So I want you guys to listen carefully.
They had looted the Aztec and Incan empires, drained the Peruvian silver mines, and set up a trade network so massive, entire fleets of ships were dedicated to hauling New World treasures back home. At first glance, it was a dream setup. Step 1, steal all the gold and silver. Step 2, infinite wealth and empire. Step 3, profit. But it turns out when you flood your entire economy with more money than it knows what to do with, bad things will eventually happen. You see, around this time when Spain was building its empire, a magical thought arose. And that was, wait, what if just printing, or in this case, mining, more money doesn't actually make you more rich? Because instead of infinite prosperity, Spain got rampant inflation, economic stagnation, and an empire-wide financial crisis. And what happened was something called the Price Revolution, which happened over 150 years in Spain. And this was essentially an economic experiment that was, what happens when a country treats money like an infinite resource and doesn't consider its consequences? Not that essentially every country in the world isn't doing the exact same thing today. We're pretty screwed. Anyways, you see, Spain wasn't just importing gold and silver. It was importing too much gold and too much silver. The moment huge shipments of precious metals started pouring into Europe, the price of everything skyrocketed because suddenly money was everywhere. Yet, actual goods and labor remained about the same. Between 1500 and 1650, prices in Spain quadrupled. And let's remember that number, because prices only quadrupled over 150 years. Yet the prices in the United States have quadrupled just in the last 50 to 60 years on most consumer goods. I mean, a loaf of bread was just 51 cents in 1980, and today it's almost $2. So while the Spanish government and elites were stacking literal rooms of gold, the average Spanish citizen saw the price of basic goods slowly spiral out of control. Sound familiar? Well, because this is exactly what happens when the money supply expands too fast without corresponding economic growth, which is what the quantity theory of money is based on. Now, there's actually a formula for this, and it is MV equals PY, meaning money supply times velocity equals price level times real output. And this was an equation that Spain accidentally beta tested in real time. Their money supply exploded, but productivity didn't. So the economy just got more expensive without getting better. And here's where the real human nature stupidity kicks in. Instead of trying to fix this problem, Spain doubled down. You see, Spain decided that they were already a filthy rich country and they didn't actually need to produce anything themselves. They essentially became the 16th century version of a country that exports nothing but buys everything. Kind of like, I don't know, wouldn't you say most of the modern westernized countries in the world? Buying all of their goods from Asia and making their entire economies based off of finance and real estate. But anyways, let's see how things played out for Spain. So they stopped making things. They imported the vast majority of their goods from places like the Netherlands, Italy, and all over their empire. Because why build stuff when you can just pay others to do it for you? They also overtaxed their economy. And they did this because the Spanish monarchy was desperate to fund its endless wars, so they just hiked taxes on everything and everyone. They used debt like a teenager with a brand new credit card that knew nothing about finance, because yes, they were swimming in pools of silver and gold, yet they still needed to take out massive loans from Italian bankers to fund their government expenditures. By the late 1500s, Spain's economy was completely unsustainable. Inflation had wiped out the purchasing power of silver, taxes crushed the working population, and manufacturing had been outsourced to rivals. Meanwhile, the elites were laughing all the way to the bank. So, I want to ask you, what happens when a country refuses to acknowledge basic economic principles and keeps throwing money at the problem? Well, it goes bankrupt. By the 1600s, Spain was no longer a dominant economic power. Its economy was in shambles, its military was struggling, and its empire was shrinking. And this was unthinkable at the time of the peak of the empire. And a little bit later on, people like Jean Bodin and David Hume began theorizing about the relationship between money supply and inflation, laying the groundwork for what would eventually become the quantity theory of money, the oldest surviving theory of economics. Now, for most of the United States economic history, policymakers actually believed in the quantity theory of money. The simple idea that if you print money without growing the economy, inflation will follow, and or things will get worse for the average middle-class person. So for example, from the 1870s to 1933, the money supply was strictly tied to gold reserves, preventing the government from just printing its way out of debt like a kid playing Monopoly. Even in 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created, which was a little bit of a controversy today and still at the time, the Fed was created to manage inflation and keep the money supply stable, acknowledging that excess money supply was, well, bad for the economy. From 1944 to 1971, the dollar was pegged to gold, again enforcing discipline. You couldn't just conjure dollars out of thin air without any real economic backing. Even after the inflation crisis of the 1970s, Milton Friedman and monetarists took charge. They argued that controlling money supply was the key to stable economic growth. They aggressively tightened money supply, causing a recession at the time, but ultimately saved the dollar from turning into a worldwide joke. However, around the 1990s, things started to change. The US government and the Federal Reserve looked at all this historical evidence, all these hard-won lessons about inflation and money supply, and collectively said, yeah, but what if we just ignore all that? The 1990s saw deregulation, globalization, and a belief that deficits no longer matter. the US increasingly borrowed money instead of relying on real growth, and by the early 2000s, Alan Greenspan's Federal Reserve started artificially lowering interest rates, making borrowing money and money creation much easier. And then all this came to a head in 2008, when quantitative easing was born. A fancy way of saying, let's pump trillions of dollars into the financial system and just kind of see what happens. The money supply exploded. However, inflation did not skyrocket, technically, because most of it got stuck in the banking system and financial assets, causing massive stock and real estate bubbles instead of consumer inflation. I mean, if you were to compare the stock market today to what it was in 2006 or 2010, you would see where all the inflation went. It mostly did not go into consumer goods, although some did. It went into all investing assets to keep the economy afloat. But because the inflation on the official government numbers didn't show up right away, people started believing the old rules of money didn't apply anymore. So if 2008 was when the US started printing money like crazy, then 2020 and 2021 was when the US government truly lost its mind. The money supply, or the M2, increased by over 40% in 2 years, which is the fastest expansion in modern history. And this money printing happened all the way up through 2022 before taking a brief break for about a year. But yet recently, it has been exploding once again. The government handed out trillions of dollars in stimulus checks, business bailouts, and unemployment boosts, while the Federal Reserve kept interest rates at 0% and continued buying assets to pump liquidity into the financial system. And at first glance, everything seemed fine, just like Spain. No inflation? I guess we can print even more. Debt is just a number. This money is just free. And I mean, really think about this. 2020 was one of the worst years in the history of the United States economy. Yet 2020 was one of the best years in the history of the stock market. Now, eventually, things like inflation did peak at around 9% in 2022 and 2023, which was a 40-year high. Housing soared everywhere around the world. Energy and food prices, they also soared, crushing the working class. Yet, everyone that had lots of money in the stock market or were large real estate investors, they made out really well. And to top things off, on top of the money printing, the United States kept taking out debt, also just like Spain. By January 1st of 2025, the United States debt has surpassed $36 trillion. Interest payments on this debt, just the interest payments, are nearing 20% of all federal tax dollars. In fact, the interest payments on the United States debt this year will be more than the entire military budget of the United States. And the government keeps spending and keeps printing like nothing is wrong. And that begs the question, how does this all end? At this rate, America is heading for a Spanish tier collapse with just some different branding on it. They keep running massive government deficits, assuming debt doesn't matter. They have outsourced most of their key industries instead of producing things at home. They've inflated their economy with excessive money supply growth. They are pricing out the middle class from key investment fields like the stock market and real estate. Wages haven't really increased that much, yet the cost of living has gone up pretty drastically. And yet, the United States thinks it can just keep papering over these problems forever. So the realistic outcomes are inflation will return, forcing more extreme Federal Reserve policies, or the government keeps printing money, destroying the dollar in the
Okay, so you guys heard all that. So you guys heard all that. The reason why the economy in the United States are tanking and why we're in the state that we're in. Because if you guys don't notice that Trump is trying to give rich, wealthy people, the one percenters, I should say, the one percenters, a tax break while giving everybody else to pay higher taxes. But on top of that, he's also trying to get rid of the U.S. Try to get rid of the IRS. And the reason why he's doing that, because it would not cover enough uh for the rich to get tax breaks. So what he's planning to do now is to get rid of the IRS. Now, what getting rid of the IRS is going to do, I don't know. But from what I know is that prices are going to get higher than what it is now if Trump gets rid of the IRS. It is not going to be any different. Things will still go up because we still need money to uh, sustain the country. And a lot of Californians now are sick and tired of holding up everybody else while everybody else is not holding up their own economy. Most states in this union are very poor. And Trump is making it even worse by cutting off federal spending that these red states depend on. Because the blue states, we're fine. We're fine. We have a great, our economy is great, especially in California. We're doing exponential. But everybody else that are living below average of $1 trillion are not doing that great. So this is why California is actually distributing $1 trillion so that other states can hold up their economy, which is very, very annoying to me because that can go for us to have minimum wages, have better education, help us with the homeless and stuff like that. So that's became like a real problem, and this is why most Californians are not happy with that because we are holding up this economy. So yeah, so anyways, I want you guys to San Andreas fault line that I was talking about earlier because it looks really bad. And the people say that California might be its own island. However, I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm just going to show you what this guy is talking about. So let's see what he's talking about.
You ready for something wild? That's a fault line. Track goes up there. Bumps down here.
You guys see how deep that is? Like it is so deep that you can literally see the crust of the earth. Like that's that deep.
That. It's literally moving. You can see it cross all the way through there, all the way on that hillside. How deep that is? It's probably a good 2 feet deep. Like it just up all that. That's not even the wildest part. I gotta take a step back to show you. That's our road. It moved about 5 feet that way. This is where we used to drive. And that's where it moved to. It's kind of scary driving over top of it, actually.
So there's the San Andreas fault line. That looks pretty bad. From what I'm seeing, that looks pretty deep. It is the borderline of California and Nevada. So that wow, that's That looks pretty bad. But we don't know what's going to happen. This could be like 100 years from now that California may sink or may flow however they want to, however it's going to go. I don't know, but let's just see what happens from there. So here's another lady. I think she's from Canada, and she has a lot to say about California at this point. So let's just see what she says.
Hey, Donald, have we got a deal for you? You think we want to be the 51st state? Nah, but maybe California would like to be the 11th province. How about it? California, Oregon, Washington, you've got geography in common with us. And not only that, we've already got a carbon trading system between California and Quebec. We've got some strong alliances on our west coast from British Columbia. There's been a lot of academic papers on the idea of Cascadia. So California, Governor Newsom, and Washington State, Jay Inslee, and newly elected Governor of Oregon, Tina Kotek. How about it? Want to put a referendum to your citizens? Because this is what you deal. Have we got a deal for you? This is what you get. Free health care. Universal free health care. No more one-year-olds who suddenly fall off the Medicaid list and their parents are in the news because they're trying to do a GoFundMe so they can get their daughter to a doctor. Universal free health care. And guess what? Those gun laws that your Congress is too afraid to pass because of the national gun lobby, we already got our strict gun laws. Hey, Donald, have we...
Okay, so that's the end of this video. Actually, at the end of the live stream, because I was only going to stay up here for a few minutes and then I'm going to head on out. So thank you guys for coming on my live. Thank you guys for showing up. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. What do you guys think about California becoming its own country? Do you think California is making the right move in trying to secede from the union, or you guys think that it's going to be a big mistake and it won't happen? So let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.